It's May 17th, 2026. Welcome to yes2hellwith.com. Today we stop talking about isolated contradictions and confront the string of illusions. Because this entire case concerning Orlando Carter now turns on one unavoidable reality. The federal government is operating under two completely different narratives. Narrative number one, the prosecution's narrative, the narrative presented to the jury, the narrative repeated through the entire courtroom proceedings, the narrative built around the claim that Orlando Carter was tied to a $4 million obligation. That narrative became the foundation of the conviction. But now consider narrative number two. The OCC, operating under the Department of the Treasury, determined only a $250,000 obligation existed years earlier than the alleged $4 million obligation. And PNC even admitted to only the $250,000 obligation. And the federal government's own records show a direct conflict with the prosecution's theory used to convict an innocent man. So think carefully about the magnitude of this point. This is no longer a small inconsistency. This is the federal government standing on two completely different positions at the same time. One is a lie and the other is truth. And I would say one rests upon sand and the other rests upon granite. Which one would you choose? One narrative helped convict. The other undermines the foundation of the conviction itself and destroys the institutional prestige. And this is where the story becomes even more dangerous, because the United States Supreme Court has already spoken directly to the duty of federal government officials in criminal prosecutions. In Giglio versus United States, the Supreme Court made clear that the government is treated as one entity. The court stated the prosecutor's duty is an entity, and as such, it is the spokesperson for the government. That principle matters enormously here, because if the Department of Justice speaks with one voice, then what happens when another arm of the federal government, the Treasury and OCC, reflects facts that directly conflict with the prosecution's narrative used in court? Who speaks for the truth? The DOJ narrative claimed a $4 million obligation, but the Treasury and OCC reflect that no such obligation exists. Those positions cannot coexist. And once the federal government possesses both narratives simultaneously, the question becomes unavoidable. Which one will be accepted in the end? The first was caused by that infamous string of illusions. One institution relied upon the prior one to advance the lie. The FBI relied upon the bank narrative. The prosecutors relied upon the FBI. The courtroom relied upon the prosecutors. The appellate system relied upon the record. And every damn stage inherited the presumptions of the stage prior, until eventually the presumptions hardened into official reality, the ultimate grand lie. Now here is the question nobody wants to ask. What happens when the original foundation collapses after the conviction already exists? Who has the courage to step forward and say, we got this wrong? And I'm willing to tell you right now, not a damn one of them, not a damn soul. Because once institutional momentum takes over, the system begins protecting itself. And that is the abject tragedy. The conviction becomes the priority. The record becomes the priority. Institutional continuity becomes the priority. And truth, well, it becomes dangerous to accept. Now think carefully about what this means. If the OCC and Treasury record reflect that there is no $4 million loan with PNC's admission, then who exactly created the $4 million narrative presented to the jury? Who verified it? Who authenticated it? Who challenged it? Who independently investigated it? And most importantly, who is going to courageously reopen the case and exonerate an innocent man if the foundation was false? Who inside the Department of Justice is willing to step forward? Who inside the Treasury is willing to step forward? Who inside the federal government is willing to step forward? In essence, where are the heroes? Or are they all cowards? We need to understand something. The longer institutions defend contradictions they already know exist, the worse this becomes. At some point, silence itself becomes institutional participation. And now another question emerges. If PNC supplied a false, suspicious activity report that helped trigger this entire chain reaction, who is going to hold the bank accountable? Who inside the federal government is willing to confront that question honestly? Because if a false SAR initiated this sequence, then the consequences are staggering. One presumption and reinforcing another until the presumptions themselves become more powerful than independent verification. This is no longer merely about Orlando Carter. This is about whether institutions possess the moral courage to correct themselves once the illusion collapses. And that brings us directly to the next episode. Where are the heroes? And as always, may truth reign supreme.